Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome to this evening's webinar. Tonight, as you can see, our topic is mini rugby, and we're delighted to be launching our new mini coaching resource, which is a 40-page document of drills, skills, and coaching tips for you as attendees. We're hoping that there'll be a lot of information you can take away from tonight. During the COVID lockdown, the team had the opportunity to develop and design this program and a number of other programs for the purpose of our coach development program in Munster. Tonight's presentation is an overview of the mini rugby program, which is a resource for you as coaches when coaching children. Your presenters tonight are Owen Maloney, one of our coach and player development officers, Eugene McCarthy, one of our rugby development officers, and Ray Gadsden, who is our participation program coordinator. Thank you for all of you for registering for tonight's webinar. We have extremely large numbers, a lot more than we expected, so we're delighted to have you all on board. And again, thank you for the questions in advance of tonight's webinar that you posed for us to answer. Because there were so many questions, what we did today, I clustered the questions into different themes as best I could, and I'll use the opportunity after tonight's presentation to bring the team in to answer some of those questions for you. The presentation does deal with a number of the questions that were asked in advance, so I've tried to cluster the ones that may not be picked out in the presentation or ones that we feel could be enhanced afterwards. Before I hand over to Owen to start the presentation, can I take firstly the opportunity to thank this team tonight, Ray, Owen, Eugene, and Kenneth McNamara, who can't be online tonight. They were the four that were tasked this project during the lockdown, and I must say both myself, Colin McMahon, our head of rugby, and the department are very proud of what you will see as a very comprehensive resource. If you have any questions during tonight's presentation, can I draw your attention to the top right hand corner where you have a Q&A or a chat icon. Again, I would encourage you to use this icon for the purpose of asking questions about tonight's presentation. At the end of this evening, I will then pose extra questions to the team, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. Owen's presentation, please feel free to pick out any areas on it that you feel are relevant to you, take some notes, but more importantly, folks, I guess the key aspect of tonight is the document, and the document being a 40-page resource to you will be made available to you after this webinar. I'll send that out to all attendees on tonight's webinar. So can I take this opportunity to hand over to Owen? Owen is going to take you through your presentation, and we'll call in the rest of the lads afterwards. Thank you, Owen.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming along this evening. Just to introduce myself, as Keith said, my name's Owen Maloney. Where I'm coming from with this, I suppose I've coached for nearly 15 years at this stage, and I've coached every level from my own young fella in mini rugby, currently playing under 10s, all the way up to All Ireland League and Munster development teams and underage teams, and every level in between. But also during that time, I've a midlife crisis and went and studied as a PE teacher for 4 years in UCC, and went on and did a master's in the area, but always with the eye of the rugby coach. And I think that's given me a better understanding, I would say, of how kids learn skill and develop skill and learn to play games. And that combined with the vast experience of Eugene and Ray of working with kids in mini rugby, we decided to sit down and Kenneth over lockdown and put down in writing what we think is best practice and what is the Munster way of coaching mini rugby. And what I give you tonight is a quick overview of what that looks like. But again, there's an awful lot more detail that will help you in the document itself. So this is just to introduce the document, and you can follow it up by looking it up. And just a brief overview of what we're going to look at is the game of mini rugby, the coach and what his role is, the player, who it is that's playing the game, and how, looking at all those things, we can put it together into something practical that you can use in terms of session planning and actual practical examples of sessions we get to as well. So the game could be defined at this stage. What's most important is that it's fun. quote Michael Jordan, just play, have fun, enjoy the game. Study after study has shown that in all sports, all ages, all levels, all genders, the #1 reason kids, adults play sport is fun. The other things all come secondary to it. And that has to be at the forefront. I say in mini rugby, we say it's important, and it's just as important beyond that. But this is when they start in the game, and we have to give them that fun element, or else they just leave the game. Maybe in later years, after they've been in the game a few years and they don't have a fun time for a year, they might stick at it. But at this age group, if they're not having fun, they just go to another sport. So I think you have a huge role to play in that. So if we look at the game itself, what's it look like in mini rugby? The vast majority of play, 95%, is general play, multi-phase, collective, team attack and defense. It's general play. A very small portion, 5% of even that, of playing the game is first phase play. At mini rugby, first phase is just a method of restarting the game. What it's all about is general play. The percentages go up as they get older, but still the vast majority of the game is general play. And that's where what we call our Cornerstones program comes from. What are the key things they need to play general open play? And the 4 cornerstones that we've come up with are catch and pass, tackle, ball carrying evasion, and the ruck. A player who's proficient at these elements can play any type of game, can play the vast majority of the game, which is open play, and first phase set piece can be built onto that. But if a player struggles or hasn't developed those areas of the game, he's going to struggle in the vast majority of the game. Okay. And what we'll show you is how to use those cornerstones and to make the game fun for them. Okay. So you, the coach, can best be defined as you're a guide for the players. And I suppose a good way to sum that up, if you like, is embrace the chaos. So what you need to think about is designing a challenge for the player and guiding him through completing that challenge or taking on that challenge. Okay, and one of the best methodologies you can come up with to do that is game sense. And to give you an academic definition, if you like, is designing a sequence of games to achieve particular outcomes, asking questions to stimulate thinking and reflection, and ensuring there are opportunities for group discussion, collaboration, and the formulation of ideas, solutions that are tested and evaluated. Right, so that's a bit academic, but you can see how the idea is that you pose a challenge for them, let them have a go, don't worry if it's a bit chaotic, and guide them to a solution again. And that's the best way they can learn those cornerstone skills and the best way they can learn to play the game. Okay, we can give you some practical examples. So what does that look like in essence in your session? This is what we, again, would consider best practice, is that you have a session team, one of the 4 cornerstones. You start with a game which challenges them in that cornerstone. You then ask them questions, guide them, and then maybe find that there's an issue, maybe not with their passing or their setting square or their running or whatever. You then break them out into smaller groups, a bit more attention from the coaches, I suppose. Be 1-on-1, 2v1, 2v2, 3v2, 3v3, 4v4. And then you, again, set a challenge and use the challenge to guide them through the solutions and work maybe on that particular skill. Back into the game, maybe the same game or a similar game, and see if they can then apply that skill that maybe they've worked on, again, in the chaos, if you like, of the game, which is the game of rugby. Okay, so that's what the theory behind it. And again, later on, I'll give you some practical examples of what that looks like. So the player, you have to consider the player. If you looked at the game, you looked at the coach, the most important one is the player. And one thing I think we see often is coaches getting frustrated with minis. Like I say, I've coached at all levels of the game, and the most challenging I find is minis. So you have a tough job, but sometimes maybe it's because we expect too much of them. You got to be cognizant of the actual development stage they're at. So in the manual, we've given you a profile, if you like, of an under 8, under 10, and under 12. So for instance, an under 8 player, you've got to remember they're at a certain development stage, and maybe what you're trying to coach them is just beyond them. That leads to you getting frustrated because they're not getting the message, they're getting frustrated, and it just becomes a vicious circle. So, you know, embrace that chaos a bit. So the puddle halfway is usually too tempting to resist. My attention span is not at a competitive stage. All I think about is me, but I will share the ball with teammates sometimes. Okay? I can catch the ball when stationary, but usually bring the ball into my body. Again, if you're push them to catch the ball out early and hold it off their body. And it's just something that may be beyond them, and don't be fretting about it. Okay, and don't be putting yourself under pressure because you aren't producing the professional rugby player at that level. Okay, and again, looking at an under 8, say, I do not understand the concept of depth. So again, if you're harping on and on at them about depth and they're just not getting it, it can lead to frustration. Be aware, maybe it's just something that is beyond them. Obviously, you want to try to give them the concept. They're on the verge of learning it, so you do want to introduce it to them and push them a bit, but realize their limitations and don't get frustrated if it's not happening. Again, in the manual, there's you can look at that, and there's one for under 12s as well. And out of that, we kind of came up with a strategy sheet for the coach. Again, this is kind of a quick reference for you to ensure that you're looking at the right things for the relative development stage. So there's ones in the manual for 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s. So example here is for under 10. What are your goals, your objectives, the types of drills and exercises you can use, and then the skills that you need to be looking at relevant to that age group. And they progress each year. Okay, so you can look back at that at any stage. Am I hitting these key points? Have I covered these with them? Have I had to focus on each of these as I go through the season? Okay, so if that's the kind of background to it, what's the practical element? And I suppose session planning is important. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I suppose these are precious little objects, these children. I know my son is precious to me, and I'd like to think that anyone who's coaching him is taking the time to plan, and for me that's kind of a non-negotiable. You put some effort into preparing for them, and what you need to plan to do is catch them. So you need to start them by being motivated, a simple game or activity. You need to coach them. It's like one key team, again, one of the cornerstones I would suggest. Any more than that, it's tough for a coach to see it and to coach it. It's tough for them to take in more than one key team. It's not to say they aren't learning the other things as they're playing the games, but maybe you only have a focus on one thing each week. And then you give them chance. You set those challenges for them, and you let them explore, and you let them have a go at finding out. It'll take time for them to figure out what it is you're trying to challenge them with, but give them that time. Just because you saw Munster performing an activity doesn't make it a good activity for children. These are, you're a coach of children and not a coach of rugby players. These aren't professional rugby players. You don't need to produce professional rugby players at the end of your season. They're on a continuum from mini rugby up to wherever they end up playing the game, and you just need to fulfill what's required at that level. So don't think you have to produce the perfect product. If you have 20 players at the start of the season, and you have 20 players, those 20 players still playing next season, to me that's a great success. And if you have 22 because 2 of them came along because they heard your sessions will be so much fun, that's a super achievement. If you had 10 of them who were proficient at tackling at the start of the season, and you have 12 of them that are proficient at tackling at the end of the season, haven't you done a really good job? You're not going to have 20 of them proficient at tackling at the end of the season. So if that's what you're striving for, you're only going to get frustrated. So remember, they're on a continuum, and you just play the role on that continuum. So what does that session look like? Preview expectations and praise at the very start. Tell them exactly what it is you're going to do. Two of the most important things that will stay with them is the things that you say to them first and the thing that you say to them last. So keep that short and sharp and to the point that you want to get across. Begin with a warm-up. Try make it fun to engage them. I'll give you a video example of one here from our manual. Try to include their fundamentals of agility, balance, coordination, the fundamental movements to help build that pyramid in their physical development. Introduce rugby skills for a 15-minute game. Again, focus on one of the cornerstones. Again, aim for a challenging game for them that's fun. Break out into your, like we have in the diagram there, 2 separate zones where maybe the coaches can focus in a bit more, use all the coaches you have, work on that little bit of the skill. Again, based around the challenge, back into the game and see can they improve on where they were in the first game. So you can see that maybe 2/3 of that session are games, and even the breakout ideally are even smaller little games as well, always based around the challenge. And then, you know, they're intelligent human beings. Have a review, praise and finish, ask them what they learned, and send them away with a positive note. Again, that idea that the first thing you say and the last thing you say are things that stay with them. So think about that. So to give you an actual example, in the manual we have a sample session plan for each cornerstone. What I would suggest is that you rotate through, in rotation, the 4 cornerstones and not focus on any one particular cornerstone. Again, thinking that long-term development and the continuum that they're on. just because they were bad at tackling last week, believe me, when they're playing under 18 for Munster, there'll still be a portion of them who are bad at tackling. So, you know, don't fixate on where maybe they're struggling. Look to the future and keep building, and it'll come around. Okay. So what does the ball carry invasion look like? Again, have a little review with them, tell them what you're going to do, what you're focusing on. Have a warm-up. And again, in this case, warm-up's related to ball carrying evasion, or evasion in particular. Bulldog, again, about evasion. You can add a bit of handling into that too. Reduced activity 1v1. Again, it's a challenge of one guy trying to beat another based around the challenge. Let him discover what works and doesn't. Build that up to maybe a game 4v4 with a big pitch where there's loads of room for them to run into, and adjust the challenge according to their success rates. Back into maybe a game of rugby prime. Again, we'll show you an example of this. And again, this game is all about evasion and see are they improving on it. And all the way along, setting challenges and guiding them. Then have a quick kneel down with them and ask them what they learned. And that way you learn, you build up a bank of what works and what's getting through and what isn't. And then have a time yourself to reflect on the feedback you got from them and how the session went, and build your knowledge over time. So I'll give you an example of a video from that session plan. Again, these videos will be available on YouTube to link in with the session plans. So here's an example of a 1v1.
So I want you to pair up. We'll just do a bit of a warm-up first. Again, we all got to pair somebody with similar speed and whatever ability as us. Right, have you all played tag, have you? Do you know what I mean by tag? You're on, if I touch you. Yeah? Okay, so we got to stay inside. See the white line there? The white line there, and the red cones there, and the red cones there. So we got to stay inside that area. You have a tag. I'm going to stop you every now and then and ask you to do a few movements. Yeah, a few movements. Yeah, and we'll see how we get on. Right? Off you go. Tag. Go. Inside the square now. If he goes outside, he's caught. If he goes over the line, he's out.
Yes.
All right, where you are, we do 5 squats. We have squats, so hands out in front, legs shoulder width apart. Now we squeeze down, all right? Don't use your hands, just over 90 degrees. Don't need to go all the way down. Do 5 of them. So your feet shoulder width apart, so like me. Just not out like this, not in like this, just nice and comfortable. 5. All right, and back you go. Except now you got to run backwards. You got to run backwards. You have to run backwards. Watch where you're going. On the right leg. Right leg, right leg, right leg. That's it. Good hoppers here. Another movement we use a lot in rugby. If you're a sidestepping, you have to be able to hop. All right, left leg, later. Just tag him, not push him up. All right, come on, let's go. Yeah. Okay, where we are. We'll do our bit of a stretch in our calves. So we're doing dynamic stretches here. You see we're moving when we're doing them. So we go down to press up, and we legs straight, and then we push our left heel into the ground, or right heel into the ground, left heel into the ground, right heel into the ground. See what I'm doing? Push the heel right into the ground, and you'll feel the stretch in the back of your lower leg, your calf is called. All right. Walk out. Don't hold the stretch, just keep moving it, right? So we're dynamic. We're getting ready to move. So we move when we're stretching, yeah. All right, now you're down there, we'll do 5 push-ups. Come on, let's go. Do you want me to? 1, 2, I'm still watching you. 3, 4, 5. Right, back into tag, except we stay in that position. So we got to crawl around, right? Like a bear, let's go. Still tag, crawling around. Let's go, 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 go. Come on, move. So I want you to pair up.
All right, I hope you didn't hear how out of breath I was in that. But hopefully what you did get out of that is they're actually doing evasion. They're also doing the fundamental movements, and they're also doing your warm-up. And any of the games, you can play the game and stop them to stick in your warm-up, your dynamic stretches, your fundamental movements. So that's just one example. But any of the other games you could use as a warm-up and stick in your elements into that. And that gives that positive note to the start. Get them active. You see how much they're laughing and running there. And I'd almost even running at the first part until they start slowing down. Just they're full of energy, they're full of beans. They're going to be a bit more willing to listen and take guidance after they've got rid of that energy. So it's a good way to start your session. Then maybe you're using a game from there. the example here from the manual given is Rugby Prime. So in the manual, you've got first bit which will show you how to play the game, and then the second part is how to coach. So the first part, how to play the game, in this example, Rugby Prime or two-touch rugby, 8v8, or in, I suppose in these COVID restrictions, you're talking 7v7. 20 by 20 meters, obviously, is going to vary depending on the age and ability of your players. That's something you need to adjust as a coach. Tackle is two-handed on the shorts, i.e. that would have been a tackle. One hand wouldn't have been a tackle. On the first tackle, the ball carrier can keep playing but can't score, which I know, like, some things always comes up is how do you get the strong players not to dominate? In this case, you opt by the strong player be the first one. He'll carry up past the first tackle, but he can't score and he has to pass and bring others into the game. And that's a really good way of really good game for doing that. On the second tackle, from a different defender, the ball carrier must take action depending on the coaching focus. Okay? On the scoring a try, you can vary what happens. So you can be turn and burn or just leave it and play. But for me, I'd avoid going back to the halfway line to restart it. It just slows everything down. You want to keep that speed up and that chaos of the game. Okay. So this is actually what that might look like.
Ending. That's your sideline. That's your sideline.
So the 22 and the 15.
The 15 and 22, or the 10 and the 22 are your sidelines. And that's right. All right. So on two-touch, on the first touch, you keep playing. All right. So you use your footwork, the evasion we're talking about. But if you get touched a second time, this time, if you can't find somebody in support you, it's turned over to the opposition. They get the ball if you get touched a second time. So you really have to evade them and keep the ball alive. Yep. Yeah. After the first touch, use your footwork, keep fighting past the first one, but then you got to look to play and look for support. If you just go truck it up to the second guy without anything, you lose the ball. We get that? We get it fairly quick anyway, right? First one to get full width gets the ball. First one to full width to the pitch gets the ball. Blues, off you go. Play. Go forward, go forward. Go forward. Feet. Good vision, good stuff. One, keep playing, yeah? Good. One hand is no good, it's got to be two hand away. Go and score it. And leave it there. Reds play. Go. Leave it there. Reds play. Heads up, scan. Where's the space? Don't get too close to him, keep her width. Somebody's got to be close for the pass. Not everyone. One. Two. Remember, we said we turn it over. Blue ball. So you got to keep the ball alive. Two hands on the ball available, yeah. Ending.
Okay, so you can see in that game how they have to pass the ball, especially young age. We look at their limitations. A lot of them don't want to pass the ball, so that game challenges them to pass the ball and will increase the number of passes and work on that skill, amongst other things. Okay, but also you can see how they have to fight past the first tackle and keep using their footwork to evade tackles in order to keep the ball alive. So what you might look at, the first part was explaining how to play the game. I suppose the second half of this will explain how maybe you can coach it and how you can guide them through the game and challenge them through the game. So you've got to have in mind a desired outcome that you're focusing on. In this case, it'll be using footwork to evade tackle and keep ball available for that pass, passing the sport runners to maintain continuity. Okay, huge part of the tackling game. If we can get them good at this, they can play a lot of rugby. So you might see this 50% arrow, and that's if they're struggling and they're only getting 50% success. You might need to decrease the challenge. You can reduce the player numbers, increase the width of pitch, get more into. Again, mightn't be a turnover on the tackle. It might be just have to stop and pass, or you might just slow the game down, count before they pass. So you can, if they're struggling, there are some things you can do. If they're running from one end to the other, constantly scoring, and you want to make it more of a challenge, you can increase the challenge. So if they're getting 100% success. So what you're really looking for, and this goes in general for skill development, you need around 70-75% success is where the sweet spot is for them learning. So if they're getting easy success, they're not being challenged, you need to challenge them more. If it's too hard for them, you need to ease the challenge. Okay, so that's just a rough thing to think of, half or 100. I need to be in between the two of them. So you can increase the player numbers, but the problem with increasing numbers is they get less touches. You can see there 4v4. Again, if you want to get players involved, the less numbers, the more they're involved, the more they have to play, and they can't just find their friends to pass it. They have to pass the guy who's near them. Okay, you can decrease, make the pitch narrower, so there's less room to move in. Again, if they're not using footwork, they're not getting the behaviours they want, you can make a turnover. Ball not in two hands, like that's one of the key things you can do. If they're carrying the ball in two hands, they're more likely to pass. So you can make it a rule that they have to carry the ball in two hands, or they lose the ball. Or on the second tackle turnover, as per that game, that's kind of a bit more advanced. You can bring it up to a bump tackle, where instead of a two-handed touch, it has to be foot on, shoulder on, but they don't finish the tackle. It works on their footwork and the approach to the tackle and makes it a bit harder. Okay, so there's some examples of that. So this is the example of me bringing in that.
And find the pass, that's it. We'll let it go, we'll let it go. Ready to support. There's only one hand, it's got to be two. One hand, no good, lads. One hand wouldn't have been a tackle, two hands would have been a tackle. Give it to the Blues. Go. Keep evading. Oh, good swerve, nice. Our ball ready to pass. Oh, touch. Okay, just one thing, lads. We might bring in a rule. So we're evading the opposition, but we also want to play if they do tackle us or get a hold of us, don't we? Don't we? We want to keep the ball alive. We don't want to go to the ground and set up rooks all the time. So, and find the path.
So, like, what happened there, I don't know if you noticed the video, but they ran from one end to the other. They got 100% success. One guy scored, ran the length of the pitch. The other guy turned around, ran the length of the pitch. So you need to up the challenge. And I also noticed that the two guys who ran the length of the pitch had the ball tucked under one arm. So straight away brought in, explained it to them. The challenge now is you have to have the ball in two hands at all times. And that makes it a bit harder and adds to their development of their skills. So that's just an example of how you can put those constraints, watch the game, see what the challenge is and adjust the challenge. And that's coaching them. Rather than directly telling them, you're guiding them and setting a challenge for them. And that is a better way. They will have more long-term skill development and better learning that way. So another thing you can build on over time, and this is just a suggestion, or you can use your own terminology that works, but this is what we would use. And you can build this terminology over time with them so that when they're playing the games, you can say, you might have heard me in that clip saying feet. I'd done a previous drill with them where I explained what that meant. So footwork, power off the inside foot, ball in two hands, protect the ball. So when I shout that at them, or say that, I should say, they know exactly what it is I'm looking for. Or if I say fight, and then instead of having to get too directive and too into detail, I can just say these words and in the game and they know what I'm talking about. And that builds up that little micro-coaching, constant micro-coaching, and builds up their development. So like an example of where I actually introduced that coaching cue. This is my first time coaching these guys.
Right, so that what we worked on there, that evasion, that's feet. So when I say, gee, feet, use your feet. So when we're playing the game now, don't ever run straight lines to make it easy for them. Use your feet all the time to keep the defence sitting them down guessing, right? So what we worked on there is feet.
So there you can see in the previous drill, I'd introduced the concept. I set the challenge for them to beat a guy one-on-one, let them off, and then as they did things, pointed out what was good, and then built it up set of feet. And then you saw in the game, I would say to say feet to them, and over time especially, that will build in them and make life easier for them to understand and easier for you to coach. So that's just examples. Again, I say in the manual we have a session plan for each cornerstone, and we have videos on YouTube to go along with each of them, so you can look at them. And the last bit there, you said, is that idea of having a reflection and feedback to your players. So I'll give you an example. It was actually from it wasn't an invasion session, it was a catch and pass session, but you can have a listen to this. And I think sometimes players at this age can surprise you.
All right, we take a knee there. Imagine I need a break. Do you need a break? What's that? Real rugby, not today, no. We're working on our skills, and then when you go into real rugby, you'll be even better. That's the whole idea. Not today, no. So another day we might do the same thing, we might just work on tackling, and then we'll bring that into the real game. Things if we work in the real game all the time, we don't work on the other kind of, you don't hone in on the skills. It's over now in a minute. Just tell me, what did you learn today? What did you learn today? Go on. Look for the space. Really good. Yeah, that's one of the most important things, actually. It's great to hear someone say that. Anything else? Width. So that, related to what he said, so that you can do what with the width? You can get the ball to the space, yeah. So it's no good space out there if all our attacking team is not available to utilize it, yeah. So what happens then is you end up running into the space, which is great because you've seen the space, but the ball gets there quicker if we can pass it and run into the space. Yeah. So well done, good. What about the actual passing technique or catching? Did you learn it in there? Yeah. Anyone? What you learn? Hands up, yeah. W, yeah. So welcome, yeah. Then W. And you may amazed how much of a difference that'll make. You catch more balls and you be able to pass it quickly. So that's really good. And what about anything else? No, I think that's loads. If you come out of that thinking that, or remembering that, look for the space and be able to pass into the space, well, that's a lot of the attacking game of rugby. What's the other side of that then? What's the defence have to do? We weren't really talking about that, but what do they have to do? Spread out and close down that space. Don't give them the space, yeah. That's the game of rugby, lads. That's about 90% of the game of rugby. If you're good at that, you get tries, and you'll stop tries if you're good at defence, that like, space thing. All right, did you enjoy that?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Well done.
Like, that was kind of an eye-opener for me. I suppose I'm guilty as anyone. I do that nearly all the time with older guys, but maybe in mini rugby we forget to do it. And it was a real eye-opener for me in the fact that they identified space, width, and attacking the space when I never actually explicitly said it to them. It was just something I posed them questions as they played the game. So it's a good feedback of what's working, what's getting through. And then I did have a little drill with them where I worked on them making the W's. And again, the fact that they could give me that back shows me that something's getting through anyway, and I can reflect on it. But watching back the video and reflecting on the fact that they gave me that has actually made me more aware in the session since I've made sure with the minis that I've had a review like that. So we're always learning if we look back and reflect on what works and what doesn't.
Get to the box, yeah.
Actually, just you might think one of the questions sometimes people have is if you're focusing on only one cornerstone, are they not learning the other things, and maybe the feeling that you need to concentrate on all the skills all the time. But the whole idea is that they actually learn better from the challenge in the game, and without you ever saying anything, a bit like that reflection there in the last guys. So watch this video. This was the one-on-one thing I was talking about that I did with them, and I never mentioned defence. Defence wasn't mentioned at all. It was all about just the challenge and coaxing them a bit and guiding them a bit on the evasion side of things. But look how this kid learnt defence.
Get to the box, yeah, and get him. Go on, keep going, you got around him. You stopped, you got you. If you kept going, you had him. Well done.
A few minutes later, he was called to the same
Close him
tones.
down, defender's learning.
Bang. That defender, without me ever saying anything, responded to the challenge and learned. So again, this is the whole idea that if they're running through games, that they're solving the problems themselves and they're learning. And that learning is far more or far longer term, longer lasting than anything that you might say to them. Okay, so that's the reasoning behind a lot of what we're saying here. Okay, so to summarize, the game, make it fun. Let's keep these guys playing the game. Just play, have fun, enjoy the game. And I say that is across the board, but most especially with minis because we want to keep playing. They won't hang around if it's not. The coach guides, pose them challenges. They're on a particular stage of the continuum of development. You don't need to make them or dictate to them to be perfecting skills or anything. Just stick to this process, fill them around games, and they will learn, they will develop, and they will become well-rounded rugby players. Okay, and you'll have played a very important role in that. And the player, his aim is to play and play games, I would say. All right, not to stand and be lectured to, or not standing queues waiting turn to be told what he's doing wrong. He just wants to go out and play and explore the game. Okay, you're not a rugby coach, you're a coach of children. Play rugby. And if you stick to those few principles, you'll be doing a major service to rugby and to these kids. Okay, and again, taking that into account, plan your session and it will help you a lot. And hopefully we will help you with that. In this manual, we will give you session plans that you can just follow. Just take the time to reflect on them before you go and coach them, because it will help you with asking questions and just the flow of your session. Okay. Keith, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Owen. Yeah, thanks for that. I was just unmuting. And folks, just before we delve into some of the questions, the pre-event questions, again, can I just bring your attention to the top right-hand corner again if you want to ask any questions for this evening, and we'll either answer, as Ray has done there with a few of them online, or we'll bring them up at the end of the pre-event questions that we have that I'm going to pose to the lads. So look, I'm going to kick off with some questions, please. Ray and Owen are online. Unfortunately, Eugene is having some technical issues coming in and out. So Ray and Owen, up to you to pick up the questions this evening. I'm gonna jump into the first one first, and I might call in Ray on this. Ray, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you up the screen there so people can see you. And I guess, Ray, a number of the questions that have come in this evening have been based around the tackle and implementing tackle in mini rugby. Would you have any suggestions or advice for the coaches tonight, just in relation to developing tackle in mini rugby across the different stages?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I think if you think about the mini player, you think about their capacities, but also think about what what they think about when they arrive for training. Like tackling can be a fearful thing for a lot of players, and just trying to build their confidence through little contact warm-up games. One of the best games that we use for young players is walking rugby. So walking rugby completely depowers the tackle, and you can control the fall as well. I think we've got videos we can share at this on a later stage.
Yeah. I guess, Ray, one of the things for coaches is just to stay patient with especially the younger kids that are starting to tackle, isn't it? And
yeah.
Depowering it, as you said, is probably the key to start with. But knowing that each of them are going to progress differently with the tackle based on their self-confidence and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things coaches should take into consideration is that they should know their players. Once they've been working with them for a little while, they'll know what they're good at. They know what they're not so good at. Yeah. They know the guys that are, would need a bit of extra help and advice by walking rugby, or by reducing it down to its basics. So maybe it's players down on one knee, walking in, showing, okay, making the player comfortable with all the technique of the tackle. So building their confidence through success. Yeah, and as you said, it's something that we've actually captured really well, folks. We have the RFU have a Tackle Smart program. There's 10 videos on that, and then last weekend, Owen and Eugene did some other activities on the pitch with mini players, which are up on the YouTube playlist that we'll send to you afterwards. And again, really, really productive, as Ray was saying. They deal with depowering the tackle first, but making sure that the player is comfortable and safe at all times, and that's really the key thing around this. So walking tackle games where we start with the tackle being only 6 inches away, so they get comfortable and make it, Ray. They're the kind of things that really kind of help to build that confidence, aren't they? Once players are starting to be comfortable in tackle situations, then you condition the games. So one of the games you might have more defenders and less attackers. So there's less space for the attackers to run to. You can narrow the pitches. You can just change the dimension of the pitch so there's less space. So there'll be more tackling. But it's understanding our players first and foremost of what they can do and what challenge do we need to set them. Like all activities, if things are too hard, players get really frustrated. But if they're too easy, they'll never really progress. Yeah, and that's a really good one to finish on, regards to making sure that you set the challenge at the right level. And Ray, I suppose some of the old adage around tackling was to start on the knees and fall backwards. And those that have been on coaching course with us, like, we do try and get them to start in a start position. Make sure that they're in that kind of low body position that, when they're just about to engage, because it's more contextual and more real to the player to be coming in at that level than being on their knee and potentially, hurting themselves or damaging themselves if the ball carrier falls the wrong way, right? So there's plenty of videos there, folks, and certainly a lot in around the tackle that we are very keen to promote, but more importantly to help you with, and safety is a priority. Stay patient with the players is our key message. Ray, I'll stick with you on this one as well, if you don't mind. A number of other questions that came in before tonight were based around session planning, and within that, how we include all players, create an inclusive environment, maybe in some cases deal with players that aren't, motivated or actually in the moment, let's say, maybe acting out a little bit. What's the importance of session planning, Ray, and have you some suggestions to the coaches online tonight around that? I think all coaches will face that issue. I mean, the only thing I can say is just be prepared. Actually, plan your session and your theme for the session, so you're not trying to cover loads of things throughout your 40 minutes or for an hour. So have a theme. So if I have
theme today is tackling, like we were just talking about. There's still running within the game. There's still evasion in the game. There's still catch pass within the game. But my coach's hat today is I'm going to focus on tackling. So when I reduce the games, I reduce it down to tackling activities and then put it back into the game. So it's being prepared. I suppose the best way to work, especially if you're working with 2 or 3 coaches, is to have a good flow to the session. And when I mean by flow is from one activity go straight into the next activity or the next activity. So if we're working as 2 coaches, as one coach is playing a game or playing some sort of activity, the next coach is just been getting set up. So when that first game finishes, that just goes straight into the next game. Or, and again, we have to be realistic with the numbers we have at the moment. So one coach could be playing 4 against 4, like Owen had in that game just now, but the other coach might be working away on the reduced activities. So you've got 2 teams playing, one group playing away on their reduced activities, their drill, if you like to call it. After 2 or 3 minutes, they rotate around. So everybody is getting enough games at the same amount of game time. All the players are getting the same amount of reduced activity skill time. And it's also, how can I put this nicely, taking the stronger players away from the games for a short while to give everybody a better opportunity to play. So if we can get our session to flow from one activity to the next, there's less time for players to be standing around. I've made a few simple notes for myself as well. Simple language is really important. So if you said the word defence to a 7-year-old, what does that actually mean? So is that defence where we have a line of players and their hands are out looking at the attack and they're all marking, or is defence the thing that goes around the garden? You know, you have to get into what young players are actually thinking about or what they understand. So simple language when you're talking to players. I'll give you a very quick cue from one of our development staff years ago with a group of 7-year-olds. So he was trying to coach defence. All right. So he asked the players what was their favourite food, and 3 or 4 said peanut butter. And he said, every time I say peanut butter, I want you to get into a straight line across the pitch, put your arms out so you look down your fingers. We should see everybody in a line. I'm telling you, that worked within 2 minutes. So players understood peanut butter. Peanut butter means we get into a line. It was a stroke of genius. So it's a language we use for those players to understand. I think Owen touched on everything through his presentation anyway. But there's a couple of things that I'll go into a little bit more in depth. Is when we finish the session, we should be asking the players how they enjoyed it. What did they really enjoy about the session today? What didn't they enjoy about the session today? And as Owen spoke in his presentation, ask them to give you one learning from that session. And it doesn't matter if it's 7 or if it's 12. Try and get something of value they can take away from that session that they can bring into the next week's session. In regards to reviewing, and again, Owen spoke about this before, so you have to do your own review as well. So was those activities too easy? Were the activities too hard? Were the players frustrated? Why didn't they work? Did I condition the games enough? And was it actually me? Was it the language I used, the activities I used, What can I do as a coach to make sure they are engaged for next week? So lots of good planning, lots of activities, sessions that flow will make your life as a coach a lot easier. And Owen said it twice, embrace the chaos, because that's what we're dealing with. And it doesn't matter if it's a coach in Water Park or Tralee or in Gary Owen, we're still dealing with children. Okay, so my message with you is just have a bit of patience and think about this in the long term. It doesn't matter where they are at the moment. If we can give them small things to take away, if we can give them a really positive rugby experience, a fun rugby experience, they'll keep coming back to us. And they keep coming back to us, that they'll stay in the game. I hope that answers some of the questions anyway.
Yeah, Ray, thanks for that, and really strong message there, you know, that, you know, we want to keep these kids playing, we want to keep them in the game, and I think it's about the experience, isn't it? You know, if we make it fun, we make it enjoyable, you know, there's every chance that those kids will keep coming back to us at the weekend wanting to play rugby. So, you know, strong message there. And I guess, you know, one of the key take homes for me out of that, Ray, is that, you know, we got to plan what the session looks like, but we got to be open to what the players want as well. So let's try and meet their needs. And, you know, if you ask them what they want, they'll potentially tell you they want to play games. You can do so much by playing games. And that comes back to Owen's point earlier on the whole game sense approach, which we're promoting through this document, you know. Ray, thanks a million for that. I'm just going to push on to the next one, which actually kind of builds in a little bit around that. And a number of questions are coming in relation to drills and skills, and people saying they're looking forward to seeing the document, Owen. And I suppose importantly, Owen, if you want to just elaborate maybe on the document itself, maybe throw it up there and we can show them a quick overview of what it might look like, and maybe you can kind of just inform our coaches of what they're to expect, I suppose, in that document, Owen, if you have it, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot more detail on lots of things I discovered, but or discussed. But you came up with the ball carrying evasion is what it looks like. But the tackle obviously was a question that came up, so I actually tried to stay away from this because, again, I fear sometimes all coaches overdo the tackle, and again, it's a long-term thing. It'll always be the one maybe that's weak. So it should only be something that's done in rotation and not something we keep obsessing about, because it's not the most enjoyable thing for them to do, reduced tackling. Okay, and we have to go back to that thing of it being fun for them. But it will develop over time if you keep them playing games. So an example, so again, each cornerstone we have, like this one for the tackle, you've got...
Do you want to share your screen there, Owen? Sorry, it hasn't come up yet.
Share the mine. You sharing there?
No. I might just bring it up here, Owen, and you can talk through it. Can you see it on my screen?
You see it there now?
Yes, sorry now. 1 second, folks. I'll just send that live now. 1 sec. No, apologies. You should see it there. Yeah, go ahead on.
Okay, so there's we've each cornerstone, and we actually have more captured. We have maybe 3 sessions for each cornerstone and activities to go with them, which we captured over the summer. But we'll release that as time goes on. But in the document we've got 1 each, so you can get an understanding of it. So again, you'll have the how to play each session, each activity. So like you came up with the tackle there, and there's a progression, if you like. The tackle is two-handed touch. Two-handed touch means we're close enough, maybe getting the body close enough, getting comfortable with that. Then you've got like a bump tackle, which is kind of touch, but it's a shoulder touch. It has to be foot in, shoulder on. I would have tackled you, but don't follow through, and that gets them used to getting in close and getting the confidence. You've got walk rugby, you can move jog, and you can overload the fence and keep it narrow in a short pitch so that the ball carrier can't get up speed. So that's kind of the progression you can build up with them, and there you can see that in the different challenges for rugby or for tackle. So again, we call them reduced activity rather than drills. I think drills has a negative connotation. I think especially in mini rugby, it should be like reduced challenges. Again, you're making the challenge. Like, so for a tackle, say it's a 1v1, you put them in really close to Deep Howard, as Ray said, and they go from there. The challenge is to knock them over, and you can work on their technique that way. And the idea that 2-touch rugby again, where at the end on the second touch, instead of them having to pass the ball or turn it over, you stop them and do a 6-inch tackle, which can be the front, side, back. And then once the tackle is made and the guy's on the ground, they play from that. So again, you're still using games, and in a game situation, they're doing those kind of static one-on-one tackling, which nobody really likes, but you have to do a bit of safety and a bit of introduction technique, but try put it into a game as quick as possible. So you can see for ball carrying evasion, which we went through, for the ruck, again, we have full session. And for catch pass, again, we have a game based around it where the challenge is around catch and pass, building up a bit of technique and reduced activities, and back into the game again and see are they any better at the challenge. So you can see here, there's plenty of something to get going. Like if you just worked the 4 of those sessions over 4 weeks or whatever, depending on what games are in between, you will have done quite a bit and have brought those players along that long-term player development if you keep rotating through it.
Yeah, and I think, Owen, I mean, coupled with the videos that we have on the YouTube playlist now that you know, pretty much encapsulates all those activities, or as much of them as we could. A big shout out and thanks to Caroline and Dolphin mini groups last weekend for allowing us to come in and capture some of those videos for the purpose of this document as well. And it just gives us the finishing touch so that, you know, coaches can both align themselves to the document, look at some of the activities that are there in black and white, but also promote yourself towards YouTube and get some of those videos that will really kind of enhance and emphasize some of the points that Owen was getting across there. Owen, other parts of the document there as well, pick on the coaching how, and in particular, you know, I'm very interested in that whole area of, you know, coaching behavior and checklists around, you know, what should an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old be able to do? Do you want to just scroll through some of those pages as well?
Yeah.
So that they can get an overview, sorry.
But just on those games as well, you will find, because you're challenging the players and not giving them the answers and guiding, they will struggle with that approach. Yeah. Stick with it. You know, it won't be instantaneous, but once they get the concept of how you're approaching it and that the challenge is on them, they really do start to respond. So again, yeah, that game sense, that idea of using questioning to guide them, there's plenty of examples there of questions you can ask them rather than giving them the answers all the time. And that puts the onus on them and gives them more buy-in to what's happening. And we've the actual regulations around the game at each age level as well. So that game that they're playing, that you're conscious of what the game is and you coach to it.
And just on the checklist there as well, Owen, I mean, that's a nice little picture for the coaches just to have a look at and see whether or not they're hitting on some of those technical areas of the game that, you know, maybe they're worried that they're not emphasizing enough on. Is that the purpose of that aspect of it?
So you're not trying to do something that's maybe a bit beyond their abilities and leading to that frustration that can sometimes be there because they're not getting what it is you're trying to do. Maybe it's just something that's, as you can see for under sevens, it's very simple what it is you need to get them, or the skills that you need to work with them, as opposed to that's, if you can get an under 7 ticking those boxes every few weeks, then you're building up to the under 11, under 12, who has a few more things he needs to be concentrating on, and that's continuum and that building of the player's skill level.
Excellent. So look, we're looking forward to getting that out to you. It'll be later tonight or tomorrow, folks, that we'll get that out. We'll get a copy of this recording as well, and the YouTube playlist. We just have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to try and get to some of the questions, folks, that have been coming in this evening, and I might bring Ray back in for one or two of them as well, just to really kind of, I suppose, ensure that everybody is happy with, you know, maybe trying to get as many questions over the line as possible. Ray, one very good question came in there just in relation to keeping maybe troublesome players involved in the session. I know you hit on it there with the session content earlier with regards to the flow, but it's probably key there that, you know, coaches are trying to make sure that there's a regular amount of activity with very little stopping and starting within their session. Would that be a fair comment, to try and keep everybody involved? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, we all know that we face challenges with different children, but if someone isn't cooperating with you, then it's possibly just getting the group together to help set some of the rules regarding behaviour. So is that what you're getting to, Keith?
Yeah.
Is that the question? Yeah. So I'd have the group involved in some of the decision making and ask them if somebody's talking. Is it fair? What should we do? Or have a very simple conversation with them that while you're talking, they need to pay attention.
Yeah.
If players don't respond, there is a time for a timeout. So timeout for 1 minute or 30 seconds, and come and join back in again.
Yeah, I think that's a key one. I think your promotion of rules and everybody buying into those rules is a key one at the start of the season in particular. You know, that's something that you can relate and refer back to then when you need to, just to ensure that they're all aware that this was something that they had almost bought into or agreed with at the beginning. Yeah. Somebody just came in, Ray, again, and I know, you know, it's probably one that we always speak about, but, you know, clubs in relation to being in areas of the province where there's other sports that they're heavily, you know, competing with rugby and their challenges they have there. I guess the question is, you know, are we in a position to support what they're doing? And Ray, as participation program coordinator, do you want to just give a quick overview of kind of some of the things you'd hope to do if things open up for us in relation to mini rugby going forward? Now that
we now have 3 of the 4 regions with their own mini committee. So South, North, and West have a body to go through. That body will report straight to the Munster youth, and then further up the line. So there is a channel now. If clubs are looking for support, they can go through that committee, and that committee will get back onto us. The resource we're showing here is just part of the support that we offer. Like if clubs are looking for support on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, or coaches workshops, they can request them through us, and we can see if we can put them into the diary throughout the season. So I say this document is just part of the service that we offer.
Yeah, excellent, Ray. And look, folks, we'll stay in touch. I mean, with your mini coordinators and also with those committees, we have a number of plans to roll this out, not only through workshops and club by club visits, but also online with a number of other programs that we're looking to try and roll out, you know, in the near future as well, Ray. Yeah.
Sorry, Keith, I just jump in there for 1 second as well, because one of the plans for this year is when there's major festivals on that we'll be attending, or staff will be attending, and we'll have something set up so when teams aren't playing, we can do little workshops with the players, or we can do little workshops with the coaches. Super. So look, folks, I'm just conscious that we're bang on the hour, and we had tried to make sure that we stayed within that. So I know there's a number of other questions there, and again, if we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out to either of us or any of the rugby development staff in our rugby development department, Munster Rugby. We'd only be delighted to catch up with you, and they'd also be very much in a position to help you with any of your questions. Can I take this opportunity to thank Ray and Owen, obviously for tonight, but importantly for the time that you two and Eugene and Kenneth put into creating this resource. I personally believe this is going to be quite a valuable resource for coaches on the ground, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it plays out and the feedback we get from coaches. I guess one of the things, and I believe Owen said it, is that this is a live document, and we need to just be aware that this
is something that we're going to continue to update and revise, and more importantly, send more information out to you as coaches as the weeks and months go by. Just to give you a quick idea of some of the things coming up, our coaching courses for all levels will commence early October, and we'll get something out on that in the next week or so, just to update for anybody who'd like to come on a coaching course, which really formalizes a lot of the stuff that we spoke about tonight. We have a coaching webinar next week for youth coaches, the under 13s to under 16s. I will include this group in that, but it will be specifically surrounding the 15-a-side game and the development of players within that. We also will have a mini regulations webinar in 2 weeks' time, which is based on the new IRFU virtual learning tool for mini regulations, and one that we will be asking the committee, Ray, to push out amongst all clubs to try and get all coaches up to speed and playing at the appropriate regulations within mini rugby. So I would be encouraging everybody on this call to come back on that in 2 weeks' time, where we will go through stage by stage of mini rugby and the regulations involved in that. I know there was a number of questions came in around COVID before tonight and again this evening, folks. It is steady ahead at the moment, as we were with regards to prior to Tuesday. We are waiting on the IRFU guidelines to come out tonight or tomorrow. It's a more detailed framework that they're looking to develop in line with meetings with other governing bodies in Sport Ireland. So we are expecting something out. We will get it out to you and into the clubs as soon as we receive it in Munster Rugby. So just bear with us for another 24 hours or so, where we just get the updated guidelines from the IRFU in regards to returning to the game. Obviously, this year is the first year of 5-year-olds being allowed to play at mini rugby. We're absolutely delighted with that and encourage it within clubs. It gives you, I suppose, a formal aspect of inviting in 5-year-olds, which we know has been a query to us for many years, of 5-year-olds coming into play. Obviously, when they come in, they're playing under 7 regulations, which is non-contact modified rugby. And we are designing, in line with the IRFU, a play rugby course, a short course for parents and new coaches to the game, dealing with 5- and 6-year-olds, that we will be rolling out amongst the community as soon as that course is designed. But again, a lot of resources you saw tonight in regards to the non-contact element are very applicable to those 5- and 6-year-olds. And we hope you guys online tonight who are dealing with the under 7s have taken some stuff out of tonight. So look, last but not least, I just want to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to the lads for the work that they've done on this, and also to the team in general in the Rugby Development Department. We're available to come out and help and support you on the ground. Just reach out through your mini officer or mini coordinator, or touch base with your designated Rugby Development Officer, Coach and Player Development Officer at any time, and we'll make appointment to come out and see you. We're in unique times, folks. Obviously, we're still living with this virus and through this pandemic. So we continue to wish you all well. Thank you for all the work that you do on the ground with regards to your club, and making sure that, you know, children and kids have a fun place to come, you know, to train and play the sport that we love. So from all of us in Munster Rugby, thank you for tonight. We wish you all well. Best of luck out there with regards to the growth and development of the game in your club. And we'll talk to you all soon. Take care and good night.